to do a video on weeds. I am by no means an expert, but I believe that the amount of knowledge I can share will help some. Okay? The thing about weeds is getting them before they seed, and you can even start that before the weather is even warm. So also getting them from the root is good, but I think more important is getting them before they seed. So I'm going to share some. Sometimes it can get really complicated when you're weeding because if you've seeded some flowers and they're coming up and it's hard to differentiate between the two. I would call them edible, but as I'm saying, you're not supposed to go from a YouTube video. You should always check. Some more Virginia creeper right here. I mean, it is the wild blackberries. We're used to seeing the Japanese honeysuckle looking like, with the little white and yellow flowers, the Japanese honeysuckle. This one is a Japanese honeysuckle. So actually it's a kind of honeysuckle that is invasive, even though we have lots of fond memories of this one. So this is what it looks like when it's more independent. Check out this one. It is aggressive. I believe it's called chameleon plant or lizard plant. You can find, it's either lizard or chameleon plant that you find by the rivers and stuff. But this stuff tends to take over. It does have a little white flower, but it does take over. I don't think it's invasive, this lizard or chameleon plant. That's actually chameleon. For me, it really has a weird smell and it stinks, but this is actually edible. As I said before, edible you need to check with, but I actually, in one of the classes I went to, I took this and I had the people eat it. And some of them were just gagging at the smell of it because we're not, in our culture, we don't eat chameleon plants, so we're not used to it. Check out how charming these blueberries are. I know that we have some native blueberries too. This one is not a native. This here is a smartweed. So if you see this, this used to baffle me because it looks a little bit, to me it looks a little bit pretty. So I was thinking, oh, this must be one of my flower seeds, but no, this is a smartweed. And if you notice, it comes out, the smartweed comes out really easy by the root. So I'm getting it by the root as you want to do. And it has a pink flower. I'm going to try to find some of the flowering smartweeds. More Palmer amaryllis. And oh, look, perfect. A smartweed with a little pink flower. It's a smartweed. Definitely a weed. This area down here was filled with garlic mustard at one time, and I just found out that garlic mustard is invasive. So, and it's seeded. I let it seed. I didn't know at the time, so I went ahead and let it all seed everywhere. That looks like a creeping Charlie to me. This looks like a wild blackberry. And the straight ones, some of this looks like garlic mustard. This is English ivy. And I did not buy this English ivy because I would know better than to plant it in the woods. But it actually was here when we got here. And as you see, it can really take over. But one thing was, as I was ripping it out one day, because it is invasive, I saw a family of turtles. And I stopped in my tracks. I said, hey, it's a habitat for turtles. This right here looks to me like a wild rose, which I don't know about the flowers on them, but I do know that sometimes they can get certain diseases that can spread to other roses. So you have to be careful with the wild roses. Here is a lovely spice bush. I believe it was a substitute for allspice. The leaves smell so nice and pleasant and clean. And it's a very fragrant, and it's very native and very beneficial for the native animals. They eat the berries and things like this. This is a spice bush. It comes up everywhere. Leaf green briar. They're really kind of hard to pull. So I kind of struggle with these because if you're trying to get it from the root, as you should with weeds, it's kind of hard to pull. Green briar. And they always are in the garden. This is that English ivy climbing up a tree, and they can destroy trees, the English ivy. It's somebody bought spice bush. Virginia creeper is supposed to be here. It's a native, so it's not a problem. More Virginia creeper. People often think that it's poison ivy, but it's not. See how it's vining up everything. Strawberries. This strawberry is edible. Research it. It's sweeter, but it's less flavor. It has less flavor. I didn't enjoy, I tried one once and I did not enjoy the wild strawberry flavor. Oh my, look at this one. Like little mittens, 3 leaves. That's poison ivy. That's an itchy one. So that's poison ivy. So if you see that, 3 leaves and the mittens, poison ivy for sure. Some people keep those for the pretty violet. They are natives, and some people even make candied violets. See, the English ivy is pretty much taken over this area here, but a lot of turtles are living in there. This one is also in a lot of the soil in Maryland. This is a staghorn sumac. So people are always really bent out of shape about sumac because of poisonous sumac, but that grows on rivers and it has a white flower. This has a red flower. This doesn't grow on riverbeds. This is called sumac. So this was a treat. It's a weed, but I wanted a sumac, and I'm hoping that it has the really nice red flowers one day. So as I said, staghorn sumac. Red flowers of the staghorn sumac have lots of vitamin C in them, so people make teas out of them. And I had it once, and I had to say that it gave me a lot of energy. Grasses, see, all kinds of stilt grasses and, oh look, it's another smartweed. Comes up so easy. Here's what the wild blackberry looks like when it's first coming up, see? It's a wild blackberry. Here is some wild blackberries that are about to produce their nice berries. So this is when they're together, some wild blackberries. This here is a pokeweed. I believe that this is a pokeweed right here. And pokeweeds have poisonous berries, I believe, when they get bigger. So I have some bigger ones, but this is what it looks like when it's little. It comes out pretty easy too, pokeweed. Some more wild strawberry. Here is not a weed, this is mint. I guess if it's in the wrong place, of course it is a weed though. Here's a weed I see a lot of and I pull a lot of, but I don't really hear a lot about. So it said they're called the Virginia 3-seed mercury. Or mercury weed, I guess. I pull a lot of these, but I don't know what the flower looks like. But they don't pull too hard, but they're not as easy as the smartweed to get the roots. Here is a part of a princess tree growing from the root, so it's princess tree. One year I let one of these grow huge, thinking it was some kind of wonderful flower because of how beautiful. But some places they really like this tree apparently. It's like, but I can't say that it flowered for me or anything. So, and it did take up a lot of space. This is some hairy bittercress. Hairy bittercress. It comes out pretty easy. In the spring, its leaves are more delicate and it does get more hairy and less delicate. So it's hairy bittercress. I eat this actually and I really enjoy it. It has a tiny bit of a flavor like a radish, hairy bittercress. I don't see too much Canadian horseweed, but apparently this is Canadian horseweed. This is some kind of plantain. And if you notice, it has this bud at the top. So I guess it's about to spread and seed. So it's some kind of plantain. Hoary plantain or something, hoary. This here looks like some dead nettle. So it's some dead nettle. I have some of the cultivated varieties and I love it as a ground cover. Here is some common gypsy weed. It's like a ground cover. I think it's a native ground cover actually. Common gypsy weed. I used to have huge patches of it and I tried to replace it with creeping Jenny. Actually I didn't, but the people that with me would garden. But this is not. This is actually a flower. It hasn't flowered this year. I think you could pronounce it anemone or anemone. Here clover and violets. That looks like a dandelion to me. See? And we got, over here next to it, we got some smartweed and some speedwell. Again, this stuff really can mat up and take over the grass. And some plantain, and some more speedwell. So this is not a ground cover, this is speedwell. This is, I mean, this is stuff that can really, really take over grass fast. And a garden is a tiny little piece of speedwell. This is one of my least favorite weeds because I've seen what it can do and how it can take over. And it's speedwell. And when it gets there in the root, in its root real strong, it's hard to get out. Speedwell. Here is a white-mouthed dayflower. They're easy to pull by the root. It's a white-mouthed dayflower. Some more speedwell. See, if you understand how much soil I had to lose for speedwell and how much ripping up, you would understand why I do not like that weed. So, it's one you don't hear of often, but I do see these once in a while. This to me looks like a bittersweet, an oriental bittersweet, or could be an American bittersweet. These can be really hard and to pick when they're strong, and they can be really pretty. I've had some oriental bittersweets that fooled me so many times because I thought they were a real plant because they're so shiny and pretty. So this could be an oriental bittersweet.